we're here. We're at the start of like actual Kingdom Hearts now, as far as I'm concerned.
Is shit about to get real?
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I've been to the gym, so I'm physically exhausted. Now it's time to get mentally exhausted.
You've broken your own body, and it's now my turn to break your mind.
Alright then.
This is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. This is the prequel game that I've been hyping up for pretty much since the beginning, since this is one of my favorite games in the series, and it's a little bit interesting how this game is structured, and as a result, how these podcasts are going to be structured around that. Because the game is split up into 3 campaigns, as we've talked about before. The first one we're going to be talking about is the guy that you're seeing on screen right now, which I'm going to go ahead and say...
Not Roxas.
It's not Roxas. Just in case you'd forgotten that, this is not Roxas.
It's just the developer still being lazy making new models.
It kind of... We'll get to it. There's reasons. Of course, there's reasons that he looks like.
Of course there
are.
I mean, if they're good reasons, we'll see, but...
Have we had any reasons that are actually good in this entire thing so far? For anything?
Not really.
Yeah. So, we play through the game 3 times usually. One time as one character each. And they all have their different perspectives on the story. They don't really interact a lot, only like 2 or 3 times throughout the game. Those bits I'm going to talk about in this playthrough. And then in the 2 playthroughs after this, I'm going to just lightly touch on them so you have a sense of timing, but I'm not going to re-explain the entire scene, because that would just be a waste of everybody's time.
Makes sense.
And then one last thing. There is a recommended play order that the developers assume that you're playing in. That's also the difficulty curve follows that, and there's a few things that don't entirely make sense if you play out of order. We're going to go out of order because I think the order that I'm going to do these in makes for a more interesting story experience.
Alright, so they made the difficulty thingies, but we're going to say fuck it because it's more interesting like this.
Yeah, but that does come with the first campaign that you're supposed to play, explains a couple of things that this campaign that we're going to be going through first assumes you already know. When we get to those, I'll just explain those real quick. It's not that big a deal. You can definitely tell what the intended order is. I disagree with that being the most optimal order if I were to write this shit. But hey, what do I know?
I'm gonna guess there are gonna be angry people in the comments.
Maybe.
We'll see.
We'll see. I honestly, the thing is that I want to be clear. It's not like you play through it as one character and then you unlock the next campaign. You can play through it in any order you like if you're playing the game yourself. So the order we're going to go through this is entirely viable if you bought the game yourself.
It would make entirely too much sense to do it like that, to unlock the next character and stuff. Let's just have the player figure it out themselves, and then after that we'll say, ha, you did it wrong.
It's not necessarily that it's wrong, and the way you pick, I don't have a screenshot of that, and we'll get into the actual story in a moment here. The way you pick which character you play is in just a menu where they're all under each other. That's also the order you're supposed to play them in, top to bottom. So most people would just go top to bottom and experience it that way. So it's honestly like not that big a deal. And I do like the freedom of if you only want to play through one of them again or something like that, you can just immediately jump into that.
That would be something like a new game plus if you just unlock them one by one. But
that is very true. Especially since they didn't know that they were going to re-release this game on like 4 different consoles over the next decade. Because with that in mind, it's very nice that you can just play through your favorite again and be done with it. But they didn't know that. This was originally a PSP game. Did I say that?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. We're done with the DS games. Now we're at the PSP, which is marginally more powerful. But only marginally.
Yeah, because sticking with one console is way too mainstream.
Why would you do that? That way you won't sell consoles, which Square Enix actually doesn't care about selling consoles, so I don't know what they...
Yeah.
Anyway, want to get started?
Yeah.
We start the game on a very familiar looking beach. at the Destiny Islands with this boy that's standing here, looking out over the ocean, saying simply that this world is too small. Then the scene fades to nighttime, and the same beach, we see now a hooded figure standing there. It's been 5 fucking seconds!
And we have our first hooded figure, yay!
I told you, once the hooded figures show up, they never leave.
Yeah.
But you might see that he's holding something under his arm, and that is a person.
Oh.
He goes over to where the Palpo tree is, where Sora, Kairi, and Riku always hang out when they're on the island, and he just puts the person face first over that tree.
Ow.
We pan over, and the camera shows you Roxas. We've gone over this a million times by now.
Yeah.
This is not Roxas. This guy is called Ventus. Ven for short.
Oh.
I'm going to go back and forth between calling him Ven and Ventus, so just get used to that. Most people call him Ven. We see inside his heart, and we see in there he is talking to a brand new heart. A heart that is just being born in this moment. The heart tells Ventus that it couldn't help but notice the huge fucking hole in Ven's heart.
Oh, yeah, that's an issue.
That's not a good thing. So the new heart offers, you know what, I am new, I have more than enough heart, energy, stuff. You can have some of mine, so you won't die, I'll be good.
Yay.
So Ventus's heart heals up, and we see his Station of Awakening. He's all, like, not dying anymore, which is good. Back in the real world, Ventus now summons his Keyblade, which you might note in some of the screenshots going forward. He holds his Keyblade with a backhanded grip, which I like most characters that hold things with backhanded grips, because usually that's reserved for nice characters. But it's a real big pet peeve of mine, because that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's absolutely not the most optimal way to use a sword, or in this case, a key. I mean, fighting with a key ain't optimal in the first place, but we're over that.
It's a very good way to die, holding your weapon backhanded.
Yeah. It's a cool way to die, but it's also a very quick way to die.
Maybe if it was like a dagger, which actually that would be kind of fun if they had like small dagger-sized keys. Anyway. Sometime later, we see Ventus has recovered from whatever the fuck that was, and he's chilling on his bed. When there's a meteor shower going on, and I don't think I have a screenshot of that. In the land of departure. This is the world where Ventus lives. This is just his home.
Alright.
It's a Kingdom Hearts original world.
That's a bit unfortunate to have your permanent residence at the land of departure.
Oh, you'll see what the irony is in that eventually. But you do predict that, yes, indeed. It's called the Land of Departure because we start a game there, and in like 10 minutes time, we're gone. Because, of course, we're going to go out on an adventure. A few combat tutorials later, Ven is sleeping on top of a hill somewhere in that world, a ways away from the castle. And he's being jolted awake by his friend Aqua, in a scene that is a 1-to-1, the same as the start to Kingdom Hearts 1, where Sora gets waken up by Kairi.
Because we still can't make anything original, and we still have to rethread Kingdom Hearts 1.
This actually has like a reason and is much more subtle. And this is, I think, well, it's not the only link back to Kingdom Hearts 1, because of course this being a prequel, right? It's like retroactively foreshadowing some things.
Yeah, but still.
Meanwhile, Ven is wondering about the dreams he was having. It felt so real, like he was really there. But then Aqua commented that he's never left the Land of Departure, so of course it's not real, because he's never been to another world. As Ven and Aqua are talking about the stars above them, a third friend joins in, called Terra, which might look vaguely familiar. Might not.
That was one of the people from the last game, the shot at the end.
All three of that's these three people. Like that's Ven, Aqua, and Terra. These are the three people at the end of the last game, where we find out these three people are in trouble and they fucking need Sora. So that's this game is about how they got in trouble. I will say, it's a light spoiler maybe, you could also, if you knew what you were looking for, which you don't, recognize Terra from something else we've already discussed.
At this point, I've seen so many generic face with real cool hairstyle that I don't know.
I didn't think most people would be able to make the connection if they didn't know. So we'll get to that, and when we get to it, it'll make sense. Terra and Aqua are due for their Mark of Mastery exam tomorrow. If they pass, they will be made official Keyblade Masters. To make sure that they never forget each other, Aqua has made some plot devices. Wayfinder charms. Based on the Palpu fruits from Destiny Islands.
Yeah, and I was saying these look like the plot devices from Kingdom Hearts 1. The one on the Keyblade. Nah, not on the Keyblade, on that Sora has with him.
Yeah, it's the lucky charm Kairi gives to Sora. It's just like Aqua has heard about that world and that tradition in that world and made her own version of those for her friend group.
Alright, cool.
That way, they'll always be part of each other's destinies and be able to remember each other.
Don't say they'll always be in each other's heart. I'm done with that phrase.
More or less. So, as we have like a good friendship moment, they all head back home. The camera pulls back, watching them walk down the mountain as a voiceover of all three of their voices together says, "This is the last night we'd ever spend together under the same stars."
Because of course it is.
So fuck all friendship. Now, we don't have much time to be sad about the implications of that though, because forgot that this is a Disney game already. It's time for some Mickey fucking Mouse.
Yay, this bastard.
He's going to be quite present in this game. And if you think he's a bastard now, you just fucking wait.
Oh god.
Mickey already has the rank of Keyblade Master throughout this game, but is still like keeping up with his training with his master, Yen Sid.
Who still looks terrifying.
Oh yeah. It's
You've got people that have resting bitch face. This guy has resting psycho face.
I mean, to be fair, he is the one who trained Mickey. And Mickey is an absolute dickhead.
That's a fair point.
So, it does make sense. Yen Sid can't help shake the feeling that something terrible is about to happen. We're talking about another Kingdom Hearts game. The next day, Terra and Aqua, these are not Terra and Aqua, by the way,
No.
are going up for their exam, being overseen by two actual Keyblade Masters. Their own master, Master Ericus, on the left here, and another master named Xehanort on the right. I've added Xehanort's Keyblade as well, just so that you can keep this in mind, because this is an important visual. Not for this game specifically, but just to keep in mind throughout the rest of the series. This is a pretty important object.
The guy on the left looks like, he's probably a tough guy. I wouldn't want to pick a fight with him. But a fair, stern master. And then you have the guy on the right who's just, hello, I'm the bad guy. Hello.
It really is. The game expects you, for only about a minute and a half to believe that this guy might not be evil, and then they just go straight into yeah, no. He's named Xehanort, which we already know. Xehanort is the name of an evil person. Although, this guy is old, and the Xehanort that we know is not old.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a prequel. So what do? But he's pretty damn evil.
Yeah.
Because, as Terra and Aqua are going through their Mark of Mastery exam, they have to hit some balls of light. But Xehanort corrupts them with the darkness. Why?
More like how? How do you corrupt light with dark?
I don't know what this is supposed to be. These are just training aids that they're hitting with their Keyblades, and they look like balls of light, and I guess Xehanort just adds in a drop of darkness into them or something. I don't know.
Fair.
All we need to know is this is the lamest exam in the universe. And Xehanort is trying to manipulate it into something. And Ventus joins in with this fight as well, trying to take care of these corrupted balls of light. And after this test, Ericus actually goes up like, yeah, that wasn't really part of the plan, but I just figured I'd let that happen because it's interesting to see how you guys deal with unexpected situations.
Yeah, this exam is normally very boring, so let's spice it up.
Exactly. So he already is kind of like an iffy master, if you're asking me. But hey, it's an exam, so maybe he can be excused.
Yeah.
But he notes, Xehanort that is, that during this diversion, Terra seems to have a bit of a thing for darkness. Like, at one point, Terra's hand starts like glowing with darkness, which he then immediately like discards because he's like, I'm not going to use the darkness. That's for like dark boys, and I'm a Keyblade wielder. I'm not a dark boy. But Xehanort's looking at that like, oh, you're going to be a dark boy. As a result of all that, after this exam, Aqua is named a proper Keyblade master, while Terra has actually failed the exam due to his lack of controlling the darkness.
So just because he had a little bit of like darkness goo on his hand, he failed?
That's pretty much what's going on there, yeah. Furthermore, he had a bit of darkness goo on his hand, and he actively chose not to use it, and he still failed.
Fucking bastards.
I don't know if you can pick up on this yet, but I don't like Master Ericus.
No.
Like, of course we don't like Xehanort, because he's the bad guy. The game frames Ericus as like, well, we'll get to that, but as a kind of almost tragic hero, and he's not, he's just a dickhead as well. He's just a dickhead that isn't into darkness.
Probably. That sounds like he had some sort of experience with darkness, and now he's very against or afraid, and now every time he sees, and then there's a tiny bit of it, he's like, fuck that.
Actually, yes, but at the time this game was released, it would take about another 10 years before any of that what you just said was mentioned in a different game. Because there is a prequel on the mobile phones to this prequel, which is also a sequel to another prequel. Okay, I'm making this like deliberately complicated. There is a game that focuses on a younger Xehanort and Ericus where they're like friends and they have a group of Keyblade wielder friends and stuff like that, where it is implied that Ericus has some vendetta against the darkness in general. But you know what?
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that, indeed. It's definitely one of the worst games in the series. I've never actually completed it. I still have it on my phone. It's just boring as hell. Now that Aqua is a Keyblade Master, though, she's entitled to have certain new secret information. But since Terra failed, he gets told to just, like, get the fuck out. And as the Masters walk away, we see Xehanort meeting up with a guy wearing a super cool, absolutely not mega edgy outfit.
Is that just Venom? That's just Venom, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah, actually. It's supposed to be a twist on the... You remember the like darkness outfit that Riku had in Kingdom Hearts 1 when he was possessed?
Yeah.
It's kind of supposed to be a twist on that. But you are entirely right. It's definitely giving me like Venom vibes. Venom with a couple more belts. And a little bit more red.
Mm-hmm. It's fucking Kingdom Hearts, so there has to be at least 6 belts. It's,
well, this one has only got, I think, 3 belts. So they've gone to therapy. They don't need as many belts anymore. I believe we're moving into the era where everything has like comically large zippers instead.
We hadn't gotten to that era yet?
No, that's Kingdom Hearts 3, I think, is where we get to that. So that's still whiles away. Xehanort asks this guy what he thinks of Ventus. And the other guy responds that Ventus kind of seems like a pushover, and somebody's going to break that loser in. And Xehanort says to the other guy that he's not allowed to fight Ventus. Not here, and not now, anyway. And this is where the stories for the 3 characters start to diverge. Everything we've talked up to this point happens in all 3 stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, later that same day, he's playing with his wooden Keyblade on his bed, and then he hears some bell ring, some like bell tower over at the castle. And when he starts to run off, he notices that Mr. Edgelord, face mask thing, dude, because we can't see anybody's faces in this entire fucking series, is standing in his room. And he tells Ven to hurry up, or else you'll never be able to see Terra again. Terra being the brown-haired dude that just failed.
Uh-huh.
Ven tells the Masky McMaskface to fucking get lost, but still figures, you know what, I should go see Terra, just in case. And he manages to catch up to Terra, who was indeed just leaving. Terra summons his armor and gets on his... Okay, I need to explain this for a second. You see that thing that he's riding on here?
Uh-huh.
That's his Keyblade.
What? They could do that?
Apparently so. These three can anyway. We never see any other characters do that with their Keyblade. And I still want Sora to learn to do this because it's kind of awesome.
Hell yeah.
And the same thing with the armor. They can turn like their soul into armor. Kind of. Not their heart. Specifically not their heart. But they can summon armor.
That sounds fucking useful.
And that armor works very much like the black cloaks that we've seen every character up until now wear. In that when you have that armor on, you're mostly protected from the darkness.
Even more fucking useful.
So what they do is they summon that armor, and then they morph their Keyblade into one of these small like spaceships, and then they can zip around to different worlds on those Keyblade gliders, is what they call them.
Okay, so you're making a prequel game, and at some point you think, let's introduce something very useful, very new. We haven't seen this before. We're not going to see it again. But let's introduce it here in a story that takes place before the 4 games we just made.
I would be annoyed by that, and I am annoyed with that to a certain extent. If it weren't for the fact that, I'm just going to tell you, this game ends with everybody, like, being in a place where they can't teach Sora things, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, we know that in the Sora timeline that Sora has gotten the message that they need help. So
yeah,
I got as far as to think that this game is not gonna end well, but these are like people standing around this are not gonna be forgetting this. So even though they can't teach it, somebody has to tell Sora like, yo dude, you can make a fucking scooter out of that key.
The thing is, aside from maybe Yen Sid, there is nobody that could have told Sora that we've met. Now the issue is, I can see Kingdom Hearts 2, we don't have time for this, right? Because there's like nobody, there's Heartless, Sora, you need to go take care of those, you have a gummy ship, you don't need this Keyblade glider shit, we'll get to that at some other point.
Yeah.
But then there's like 3 more games after that where Sora and Yen Sid have like just direct contact and access to each other, where there's still like other shit happening, but at some point you would imagine Yen Sid goes like, hey, you know what's a cool trick? You can do that.
Yeah. And just, or just like, oh, wait, before we go into battle here, how about some fucking armor?
Yeah, you would think that's useful.
Maybe.
In the Xehanort Ericus prequel game on mobile phone, they all have armor as well. Xehanort has armor, Ericus has armor, and all their like other Keyblade friends have armor. And they're like first year students as like Keyblade wielders pretty much. That implies that it's actually, at least the armor, is pretty easy to learn. So I totally agree that Sora should get armor. The Keyblade gliders, I can see being a little bit more difficult because you're like morphing the Keyblade around. And to be fair, we do see Sora doing not a Keyblade glider, but doing some more interesting stuff with his Keyblade in the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer. So maybe he's working his way up to that.
Yeah, maybe. Would be funny if like that armor it comes out of their soul. So it's I imagine it's something like a muscle you have to learn to control. Would be quite funny if Sora at some point just like sneezes very hard and suddenly has an armor.
That would be quite funny. I say it's made out of the soul because of something that happens later in the game. It's never explicitly stated if that is the case or if it's just like the same way they can summon a Keyblade, they can summon this armor, and it's just a soul gets attached to something at the end of this. It's a little dubious as to how this process actually works, but it's safe to assume that if you're a Keyblade wielder, you should be able to summon this armor relatively easily and probably do the Keyblade glider thing as well.
Yeah, and for Sora up to this point, he has just been whacking beings on their head with the Keyblade. So,
And so far that works. And he does have a gummy ship, so he doesn't really need this, but still, it strikes me as useful to have this ability.
And it looks fucking awesome.
That most importantly, and it makes things so much easier to animate, because you certainly don't have to animate a face anymore.
Yeah.
Which I am sure is 90% of the reason that this is a thing in this game. They don't wear the armor that much outside of traveling between worlds, but there's a lot of cutscenes that happen there. A fair amount anyway. So, Terra gets on this thing and just fucks off to a different world, and Ventus follows him with his own Keyblade armor and his own Keyblade glider, which Ventus rides his like a skateboard, and I fucking love it.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us to the first Disney world for Ventus. We're going to meet some dwarves.
Oh, shit.
We're doing the remaining Princes of Heart. Remember the 7 Princesses of Heart, the Disney princess from Kingdom Hearts 1, where we didn't meet all of them?
Because the game opened with a giant picture of Snow White in Sora's heart, right? Or the tutorial thingy.
I think it might have been Snow White. It might have been a different princess. But there's 3 princesses that we never visit their worlds in Kingdom Hearts 1. The princesses themselves show up at the end. Because they do get kidnapped by Maleficent. But we never visit their worlds. And finally now, like 10 years later on a PSP game, we get to visit the worlds for those 3 remaining princesses. First of which being the Dwarf Woodlands. That being Snow White's world.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if you remember the Snow White movie very well. Because I certainly don't.
Nah.
But the dwarves, apparently not huge fans of visitors. So Ven goes up to tell them, hey, I need help, and can you help me find my friend? Terra, he looks like me, a little bit taller, has like this weird clothing thing going on as well. And they just tell him to fuck off.
Yeah, they're minors. You have to be kind of a tough asshole to be a minor, so...
That is very true, but to get rid of him, they tell him to fuck off, and he's like, no, I really need your help. And they tell him, maybe go check out the castle on the other side of the forest, because maybe somebody there knows. And Ven's like, fucking fine then, I'll leave. And going through the forest, he runs into, who else but Snow White.
But he is walking through the forest?
They don't use their Keyblade gliders inside worlds. Actually, that's not even true. There's one world where there's a minigame where you're on your glider. There's 2 worlds where there's minigames on your glider, actually. But in normal gameplay, they just walk.
Yeah, because, I've got a car here, and whenever I'm not leaving the country, I'm fucking walking, sure.
There is a little reasoning to that, which I didn't go over. I don't even think I've mentioned it too much in Kingdom Hearts 1, but there's this thing about, since they're from, like, other worlds, they are not supposed to be meddling in the worlds they visit, which promptly gets ignored in literally every Kingdom Hearts game. And part of that is not letting other people know, and this is the most important part, that there are other worlds to begin with. So Ven is not allowed to say, hey, I'm from the land of departure. He's just supposed to say, like, oh yeah, I'm not from around here. So where are you from? Not here.
Anywhere but here.
Exactly. Going around showing off their Keyblade armor and gliders and stuff like that probably would raise some suspicion as to something fucky going on. So that's kind of the reason they're not doing that, like, canonically. The real reason is that the PSP couldn't handle it.
Yeah, fair enough. But having someone skateboarding on their Keyblade through the sky would be kind of a giveaway. What might also give it away is, they're not very much trying to blend in.
Yeah, now, at least Sora, when they go to a world which is significantly different, like Halloween Town or Atlantica or whatever, they change their costumes, and as the games go on, more and more worlds get specific costumes, like Kingdom Hearts 2, they turn into like a lion and stuff like that. Terra Ventus Aqua, don't do any of that shit. Not even close. So, I like most of these characters, but they're all really bad at their job. Because these people, I've talked about this before, this is where the games turn from, oh, we have like a mystical Keyblade, and there's a chosen one that has the Keyblade, to Keyblade wielders are pretty much Jedi now. It's just Star Wars now. Which is made worse by the fact that Master Ericus is voiced by Mark Hamill, who plays Luke Skywalker. Funny thing about that, and after that tangent, we should get back on track. Master Ericus is voiced by Mark Hamill, Star Wars. Master Xehanort in this game, after like 2 or 3 games, I think the voice actor dies, so they changed. But in this game, he's played by Leonard Nimoy, who played in Star Trek.
Oh.
We literally have the Master of the Good Guy and the Bad Guy Master being Star Wars and Star Trek voice actors. There's no way that wasn't on purpose, but that's just a funny little Easter egg. So going back to what we're actually talking about, which is the story of these goddamn games.
Yeah.
Ven runs into Snow White, and Snow White is scared of possessed trees, something like that anyway, because there is some monsters around here. And you might think, oh, there's Heartless. Oh, it's you think it's that easy?
That would be way too easy. That would make entirely too much sense.
No. It can't ever be that easy. We'll get into that in a moment. Ventus guides her back to the dwarf's house, and there they figure she should be safe. And when the dwarves show up, they instantly like Snow White, but they're still like, I thought we taught you to fuck off to Ventus. And Snow White is telling the dwarves about, no, this guy is the one who saved me from the other guy who had a sword shaped like a key, and he spawned all these demons around him. And Ventus thinks, a sword like a key, that can literally only be one person, even though this entire game is about a lot of people with a lot of keyblades, that has to be Terra. I gotta go check it out. And again, while the dwarves are telling him to fuck off, Ventus kind of ignores them but fucks off anyway to go look for Terra. Sadly though, Terra, nowhere to be found, but he does find a very nice, totally not evil looking old lady who drops an apple. And he's like, here you go, ma'am, you dropped this apple, which is totally not poisonous. Ventus is the reason Snow White almost dies.
Fuck, I mean, if they couldn't see that that Master Xehanort was a bad guy, then I guess he's oblivious to this witch bitch.
Fair enough. I particularly take issue with this because usually Kingdom Hearts and Disney don't have too much interaction with each other. Sora's around while the Disney plot happens, and there's maybe they make a quip or two towards each other. And in later games, there's a little bit more interaction. This is kind of like a almost uncanny valley where the Kingdom Hearts characters are actively enforcing the Disney plots.
Yeah.
It's almost like Ven knows, oh, this is a canon event. Here, you have this apple. You need this apple.
It's a butterfly effect kind of thingy. That if he doesn't give the apple, then the whole thing doesn't happen, and then the whole world is even more fucked. And I don't know. It's still some the timey-wimey bullshit going. Yeah. I see why you don't like it.
We'll get into the timey-wimey stuff at some point, because since this is a game where we have 3 characters going through all of these worlds at different points in time, this is where Tatsuya Nomura needed to start thinking about timelines and stuff. Because if this character goes to this world, and then they meet in that world, how does that line up? And this is where the whole concept of time dilation between different worlds starts to develop. And it's not explicit in this game yet. There's a game later down the line where they make that an explicit thing, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, that just sounds like an easy writing tool to be like, we need 2 people to meet here, but this took 2 months, this other storyline took a week. Time dilation, yay!
Yeah, and there's a number of different ways time dilation works in this series. The Realm of Darkness, it's not really time dilation as much as it's the Quantum Realm. Time isn't necessarily slowed down, it just moves differently. I'm going to go ahead and say we don't have time travel through the Realm of Darkness yet.
Not time travel in the sense that you can go back, but time travel in the sense, time fuckery in the sense that I spent 2 years in the Realm of Darkness, but in the real world it's been 2 days. or the other way around.
Something like that. There's at the end of this game, we get a little bit more into that. It's never made very explicit how it worked. It's just time is different in the Realm of Darkness, and how exactly is never really explained, because once they start to explain, things probably start falling apart, because as you mentioned, this whole time dilation thing between different worlds is entirely separate from the Realm of Darkness time dilation, and is just a thing they came up with because at a glance it seems to fill in plot holes, but once you start thinking about it a little bit more, it actually doesn't, and it creates more plot holes.
Way more plot holes.
Plot holes in Kingdom Hearts? No way.
No.
The nice old lady, which is totally not evil, thanks Ventus for picking up her apple, and said that she was threatened with a sword just like Van has. Van has his Keyblade out here, even though he shouldn't. That boy asked him about, or asked her rather, about some guy named Xehanort. So she ran into Terra, which was very threatening with his Keyblade towards her, asking about where Xehanort is. And that's everything we have for this world. So next up, we go to Cinderella's world, the Castle of Dreams. And here, we start the world with Ventus in the mousetrap. Because Ventus in this world, for some reason, is tiny.
Okay.
The other two characters also visit this world, and they are normal sized. Ventus becomes a mouse. Well, he doesn't become a mouse, he's just mouse sized. I don't have a screenshot of it. The final boss for this world is a cat. Nothing really happens in this world. But Ven is mouse-sized. Cinderella's working on a dress to go to the ball. And we go on a small adventure around the house to help get supplies to make this dress.
And she's just fine with a tiny dude.
Oh, she thinks Ventus is a mouse. She straight up calls him a mouse.
Oh, okay. She's just
stupid, yeah. She's a 1960 Disney character. Woman, specifically. Of course she's stupid. I just want to make clear, by the way, that that's what Walt Disney was like in 1960. That does not reflect what I think about women in 1960. But yeah, no, she calls him straight up a woman? No, a mouse. She does note that he's a very strange mouse, though.
I was going to say, she's just like, for us as the players, Van just looks like himself, but for her, he looks like a mouse. But even that ain't the case then.
No, she literally is just kind of stupid. She can tell that, this is a mouse. It's a weird mouse, though, so she doesn't make the jump to you're a tiny human, because, well, honestly, that would be quite a weird jump to make if you see a mouse-sized human.
Yeah, and all the other animals around her are also talking and helping her with shit. So one weird-looking mouse helping around, that seems fine.
She's a little bit less stupid than I'm making it out to be in that scenario. That's fair. I think she's still just kind of stupid. But yeah. Ventus helps her finishing her dress because she has a dream, that being going to the ball and meeting the prince. And Ventus can relate to that because he also has a dream, that being becoming a Keyblade Master with his two best friends, Terra and Aqua. And then we fight a cat. Which is actually like, I have a little bit of a thing for, in games specifically, for being very small in everyday environments. I really like that. Like Toy Story 2, amazing game. I really like fighting this cat as a boss fight, even though the boss fight is not that special. This entire world is not that special. It's got a soft spot in my heart. God damn it.
It's always fun to fuck with perspective and all that jazz.
It definitely is. I like it. But I think I should point something out at this point. Because the elephant in the room is we're fighting a big-ass cat here. And I told you before about the demons that were spawned around Snow White. And specifically told you that they are not heartless. Because we can't have 2 games in a row where we fight the same enemies. That would be... what the fuck? So this game has the Unversed, which are heartless store brand version.
Heartless Wish.com?
Literally heartless from Wish.com. This is... we have heartless at home.
Yeah.
Is what this is. They have their own unique symbol, which you can see on almost all of these characters. Pretty much every like normal Heartless that you see in the mainline games, there's an unversed counterpart that works almost the same way. It's just a new design with a new backstory.
All right. But in Snow White's world, she was talking about the evil trees, which I can see here.
That's the boss of that
we
world?
We never did anything about that.
Oh, yeah, no, we did. That,
Right.
we fought that boss. I just didn't think it was worth going over. No, that's the boss fight of that world for Ventus. Some boss fights happen multiple times. There's usually 2 boss fights per world, and those get split up between the 3 characters. So in this case, I think in the Snow White world, you have this tree boss fight, which you only fight with Ventus. And then the other boss fight that you fight with both Terra and Aqua in Snow White world is the mirror on the wall, the Evil Queen's mirror. It is a boss fight. And then in the Castle of Dreams, the world that we just finished, the carriage, the pumpkin carriage on the left there, is the boss fight that you fight as Aqua. And actually, they all have a unique boss fight in this world, because you fight the cat as Ventus, and there's a specific other... the Unverse on the right with the instruments around him. Not the big one, but with the violin and the trumpet and the drums.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the one you fight as Terra in that world. So I'm not going to go over like all those boss fights and all that shit, because it's not that relevant. Just the Unverse as a concept is relevant, and it gets explained in Terra's story, which is what you're supposed to do first. It really never gets mentioned what the Unversed are in Ventus' story until the very end, at which point it's supposed to be a big reveal for something that we haven't talked about yet. So I'm just slotting this in here right now. The Unversed are a thing. They are this game's Heartless, which are there for reasons that we'll get to at the end of this story.
All right.
So yeah, after we finish up the dress, Ven and his new mouse friends all have just... they hang around, they chill, because Ven apparently doesn't have any haste in finding Terra. And Ven has enough time for a little bit of a flashback about what matters most to him, his big dream in life, that being becoming the Keyblade Master he wants to be, with both his friends Terra and Aqua. And let me double check here. I don't know if this cutscene shows it, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. The wooden Keyblade that Ven was playing with at the beginning of the game in a cutscene,
Yeah.
we see here that actually used to be Terra's like practice Keyblade before he like got a real Keyblade, presumably, and he gives it to Ventus as a mark of that dream and of their friendship and all that anime bullshit.
So Ven's Keyblade is a practice Keyblade?
No, Ven also has just a normal real Keyblade of his own. This is just a it's kind of like a dueling sword.
I was just
a wooden stick in the shape of
fucking
a
around with it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right.
since Terra's like, I've got a real Keyblade now, I'm on my way to becoming a Keyblade Master, but Ven, you're still practicing. You can have my practice, my dueling Keyblade, as well as you can keep this as a token of our friendship and as a reminder of the dream all 3 of us share.
No.
So it's more so symbolic than anything else. We'll get back to this cutscene in a little bit more detail later as well. You want to speedrun the next world? Because we're going to go to the Sleeping Beauty world, where we find Princess Aurora, who's already asleep because her heart has been stolen. I should mention, she was asleep before her heart was stolen as well, because the plot of the Disney movie still happens. Her heart is just also stolen.
Oh, doubly inconvenient.
Yeah, so we need to get her heart back so that she can not wake up, so that somebody can go get a prince to wake her up. So that's what Ventus does. He goes and gets Aurora's heart from Maleficent's castle, and I just skipped over like an hour of gameplay, because it takes a fucking while to get through Maleficent's castle.
At this point, she still has a castle.
Yeah, which is actually a good question, because after
is
Kingdom
nice.
Hearts, what? Why didn't she go back to this castle?
Yeah.
This is her home world. This is where she's from.
Maybe that's the problem.
Maybe this world fell to darkness, actually. That's why she can't get back to it. That's reasonable to assume, I guess.
If this world fell to darkness, I would imagine that would also be Maleficent's fault. So, kind of screwed herself over there, then, I guess.
Presumably, there is a strong implication. It's almost explicit, really, that this game is what starts her off on a quest to collect the 7 Princesses of Hearts, which is what we see her do in Kingdom Hearts 1. So, this game, which takes place 10 years before Kingdom Hearts 1, is where that whole quest gets started for her. She even says in the cutscene after this entire world, in I think Terra's story, 7 princesses of pure light. Collecting them might take a while. Like, yeah, no shit, it's taking you 10 years.
Gotta catch them all.
As they make their way back out of the castle, of course, they run into Maleficent, who is not too pleased about Aurora's heart being released, because she's just gotten the first heart and she needs 6 more, and now already 1 has been released again. And she notes that
meddling kids.
if it wasn't for these meddling Keyblade wielders, I would rule all worlds already. Speaking of Keyblade, though, she notes that Ventus has a Keyblade, and Ven is very confused as to how she even knows about the Keyblade, and she tells him, well, Terra, of course, he demonstrated the power of the Keyblade in being able to unlock Aurora's heart. And Ven, not a huge fan of learning this information, because he's like, Terra wouldn't do that, right? Terra isn't evil, he wouldn't steal a princess's heart. And just as Ven is starting to have doubts on, or maybe he could, Aqua runs in. Aqua's here now.
No.
I just want to take a moment here and appreciate the fact that this is a female character in Kingdom Hearts inserting herself into a scene and doing a thing.
Actually doing stuff.
It's amazing. Aqua is the first actual female character that's just more than a plot device.
Yay.
It's like 2008, but we finally have one. She tells Ven to not believe a word that Maleficent says, because Terra would never do something like that. And then she tells Ventus, like, hey, so yeah, the reason I'm here is, why the fuck did you run away from home? You go the fuck back right now. You're not supposed to be leaving home yet. And now I need to take a look at my notes, because I was doing that all off the top of my head. Ventus remembers Masky McMaskface telling him that he will never see Terra again. So that's why Ventus can't go home. He needs to go to talk to Terra. And he runs off again, and Aqua just kind of lets him walk away. Doesn't really do too much to like stop him, go after him. She just hangs out with Maleficent. She fights Maleficent, of course, but still.
And, you know, actually exchanging information between two characters and stuff, that again, that would make entirely too much sense. And then the game would be over in like half an hour.
We can only dream.
Yeah.
And that's everything for this world. So next up, Ven is surfing through space, darkness, stuff between the worlds. He's between worlds. And he sees Masky McMaskface, who can just float through the darkness without any protection, because he's a dog boy, and apparently he can do that.
Cool.
Ven's like, okay, if I can't go ask Terra what the hell is up, this guy was bothering me before, I'll just go follow him. And they end up in a desert where Masky McMaskface turns out to have a Keyblade.
Of course he does.
Because everybody's got fucking Keyblades now.
And you get a Keyblade, and you get a Keyblade. Yeah.
Oh, it gets worse. Donald and Goofy don't get Keyblades. Would be funny. And this is where the most bullshit boss fight of the series starts. Every fight against Masky McMaskface is fucking insane, because this dude is super quick moving around. He can teleport out of your combos, so you've got him stun locked. No, you don't. He just teleports away when you're hitting him.
He's as much as an asshole fighting as he looks.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. They're fun fights for the most part, but they're fucking brutal. Even on like the lower difficulties, there's like a good chance that you might die. So, naturally, he actually kicks your ass. Canonically, you lose this fight. And just as he gets ready to strike you down, while even saying that, you know, his master gave him orders to not kill Ventus, but Ventus is such a fucking pushover that he just can't help himself. He needs to kill this boy. Mickey Mouse shows up. The only reason Ventus doesn't die is Mickey Mouse showing up. And that makes me irrationally angry.
Yeah, that does actually make you kind of a pushover. Yeah, the other guy has a point.
Fighting him together with Mickey, you actually beat his ass, and he's like, I'm going to retreat here. And he tells Ventus, for the time being, consider yourself on probation. And Ventus like, literally asks, probation from what? Because it's Kingdom Hearts, we got to be cryptic.
Yeah. Also, the Keyblade from Musky McMask's face has eyes.
Oh yeah, Musky McMaskface's Keyblade has eyes. That's a good catch. I told you we'd get to what the eyes mean, because Riku's weapon also had one.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to tell you what it means yet.
Of course not.
It'll be a while, but we'll get there. And when we get there, you're going to be upset.
I'm counting on it.
I will tell you one thing, is all of the elements that explain what the eyes mean have already been introduced. You're just going to never be able to link them, well, more or less. You're never going to be able to link them together on your own.
Yeah, it's gonna be some lore bullshit, terms magic stuff. So yeah, no.
It's actually not, but it's... Yeah. It kind of... I mean, it's Kingdom Hearts, of course it kind of is. I'm not going to explain it right now, and I won't be able to explain it for a while. When we get to it, you will probably remember this conversation. It's like the reason that there's eyes in these weapons is stupid, but I fucking love it. I should also mention that in my notes, it says Mickey X Machina literally falls out of the sky to save you. And that is because Mickey has a star shard. And the star shard allows him to travel through different worlds. But there's one little hang up on that. And that is that this star shard, you can't really control it. It just goes off on its own and just takes you to a random world which it's deciding. You can't
it's
say...
Like one of those, it's like one of those surprise vacation thingy.
Yeah, except you can't say that you don't want to go. At the moment it decides you're going. Even if you're in the middle of a conversation, which happens, I think, every time that this thing goes off, it's in the middle of a conversation.
So it literally just, it decides, you need to be plot convenient. Get over here.
That's literally what it does. Mickey even says that if it hadn't taken me here, you would have fucking died. I feel like it's not taking me places at random. I feel like it's taking me places where I am needed most. Meaning that, yes.
Oh, you fucking thing.
This thing, canonically, has the power to take you where the plot needs you to be. Which gets me to a fan theory that I came up with myself when I was writing this. I think Pluto ate this thing between Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Because, as you might remember, Pluto just shows up where the plot needs him in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Uh-huh.
There's like no substance to the theory, but like we never see this thing again, and Pluto has the same power, so that pretty much proves it to me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's my headcanon. Pluto ate a star shard.
And then he had a star shit.
And that's why after Kingdom Hearts 2 he doesn't have that power anymore.
Exactly.
So yeah, as Mickey is explaining all of this, it glows and it yeets both of the characters into space, where we don't know where Mickey ends up, but Ventus ends up at Radiant Gardens, which you might remember as being the original name of Hollow Bastion.
Right, yeah. And I was digging in my head, like, that sounds familiar, but yeah.
So this is Radiant Garden, this is Hollow Bastion before it goes all bad. So this is the castle. Well, there's two castles in Radiant Garden. Radiant Garden doesn't make any sense, don't think about it. Ventus goes to meet up two people that are vaguely familiar to us, that being Dylan and Alias. And this is where we get into the X names.
Yeah.
These are the two least important organization members, so I won't blame you if you don't recognize them.
On the right, is that the guy with the axe on his forehead?
No.
Dang it.
But we'll get to him pretty soon, because most of the characters from the organization are actually from this world.
Oh.
No, these two are very, like, throwaway organization members. The one on the left is Dylan, which in the organization is called Zaldin, which is the character that in Kingdom Hearts 2 is the bad guy in Beast Castle, which doesn't have any plot relevance. He just is there because we need a bad guy there, and that's the organization member there. And Lexius, or Alias as his human name is one of the bad guys Riku fights in Castle Oblivion, and never shows up again. So you can forget these guys. That's not that big a deal.
Well, I already did, so...
Good. Forget him again. Next up, though, a huge fucking Unversed shows up to fight them.
The hell is this supposed to be?
1 second, because I'm about to explain that.
Alright.
There's an Unversed, and Ven is like, oh, I see an Unversed. That's my job. I'm going to go fight it. And Dylan and Alias are like, hey, probably you shouldn't do that because you are a literal child. And as they go after Ven to go help him, someone else shows up. And this is actually a relevant organization character. Being in the organization, he's called Vaxen. His human name is Evan, who can, for some reason, tell that Ventus's heart doesn't have any darkness inside of it. Not a single bit.
Huh.
So we chase around that Unversed. This is just like these characters go back to their jobs because they're adults. They have actual jobs. While we chase it around the Unversed, we run into Scrooge McDuck. And Scrooge McDuck, who wasn't in too much danger, really, I don't think, is like, oh my god, you saved my life. Here, as a reward, have 3 lifetime passes to Disneyland. Well, it's called Disney Town, but it's pretty much Disneyland.
I mean, Disneyland exists in Kingdom Hearts?
Well, it's... Let me preface this by saying I don't know. But it's implied that there is a world called Disney Town. And apparently you need like day passes or like year passes to get into that world, because that's what Ventus gets here. Which I assume means it's a different world from Disney Castle, which is where Mickey and Donald and Goofy are from.
Uh-huh.
But they might be the same world, I don't know. But he gets 3 passes because Scrooge McDuck's like, okay, that's 1 and 2 adults. Which I think is actually a mistranslation, but I'll explain more about that in a second. Because as we go, like, okay, thank you for the passes, Mr. McDuck, you're a billionaire, go die. We go back after chasing the Unversed boss fights. Where we meet up with both Terra and Aqua, who were also chasing big-ass Unversed. And the Unversed combine into one Megazord fucking Transformer boss fight.
Fuck me dead.
And for most of this game, you don't have party members because you're all on your own. All 3 characters have their own path. In this boss fight, your party members are the 2 other characters.
Nice.
So you actually fight with all 3 against this thing. And unlike most party members in most Kingdom Hearts games, these 2 party members actually fucking deal damage. So it's a viable strategy to just run around until they kill it for you. It's not a good strategy, but like if you're bad at the game, you can just keep mashing like dodge and you'll eventually win.
I like it.
After we beat it up, Ven gives the 2 spare Disney Town passes to Terra and Aqua. And here we get into, I think this is a mistranslation, because this scene, like the way Ventus says it is something like, he says it was 1 for me and 2 adults to bring, and they all laugh like that's supposed to be funny. I got corrected before on a mistranslation thing that I had a theory on about the smells in Chain of Memories being a mistranslation. That actually was the same in the Japanese text. If I'm wrong again, do feel free to correct me in the comments. But this one I'm fairly certain about, that Ventus in the original gets told, you'll get 3 passes, 1 for you and 2 for your parents.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. Even though we haven't seen any parents from anyone ever at this point.
Parents don't exist in this universe. Actually, that's not true. Sora has a mom. We don't see her, we hear her. Like, she has 1 line in Kingdom Hearts 1. This scene would be a lot funnier because these 3 are just friends. Ventus is a little bit younger than them, but they're just friends. So, him giving them the pass that are supposed to be for his parents, like, that makes sense why that scene would be funny, but it's just like, yeah, you 2 are adults, I'll give it to you. It's something got lost in translation there, I'm pretty sure. So, Aqua, much like the last time she saw Ven, tells Ven, hey, you need to go the fuck home, didn't I tell you before? And Ven promptly just ignores that and saying that Masky Maskface is no big deal because next time I'll kick his ass. And Terra freaks the fuck out when he hears that because he's like, you know Masky Maskface? And now we finally learn what his actual name is. Because if you didn't pick up on that yet, Masky Maskface, not his actual name. That's just what I've been calling him. His name is Vanitas, which is some kind of language for darkness, I think. I don't know which language it is.
Yeah, subtle.
Very, very subtle. I'll do you one better. You know all the X names?
Uh-huh.
You asked about Xehanort before, right?
Yeah.
There actually is an anagram for that, because Xehanort with the X taken out, rearranged, can mean two things. The first is another, which doesn't really have much implications. The other one is no heart. And there's a secret boss in the end of this game, a optional super boss, which is straight up just Xehanort's Keyblade armor, and that boss fight is called No Heart. I feel the need to point out that Xehanort does in fact have a heart.
Otherwise, he can't.
Otherwise, he'd be nobody.
Yeah.
And we know his nobody is Xemnas, so that's not the case. But Xehanort actually does have an anagram in his name without the X, so I kind of lied to you, but I forgot about that because it's not lore relevant, and it's actually kind of confusing because it makes you assume that there's things going on which aren't actually there.
Yeah.
So, very not subtle, but at least Vanitas actually has a tie-in with the darkness because he's a very dark character. Which makes Terra agree with Aqua.
Little bit of a tangent, but I'm still waiting for the day. If the people watching, listening, haven't picked up on this, your accent is fine. Mine is a little bit more telling. We're not native English speakers. We're fucking Dutch. I'm still waiting for the day someone calls their character in some sort of English production de slechterik, or something like that, or in this case donker.
Oh, it's actually, again, we'll get to it, but there is a character, I'll just tell you now because it's not a huge spoiler, there is a character named Darkness.
Huh.
So they don't even do it in a different language, it's just straight up, there is a character named Darkness.
God damn it.
I think we're pretty safe from that because Dutch is not a particularly mystique sounding language. It's quite the opposite, in fact.
Yeah.
What I do like is usually these kind of things are very much based on either Latin or Greek, and a lot of things usually take from Roman and Greek mythology as well, which to a certain extent is also the case with a lot of Kingdom Hearts. There is a game in this series which actually takes a lot of inspiration for characters from Norse mythology instead. We don't have a character named Thor, luckily. But there is a character named Baldur and Odin. I forget the rest of them because they all die in their respective games. So, spoiler, I guess.
Speaking of that, and then we'll get back. But Marvel is owned by Disney. Are we ever gonna get into that?
Do you want my answer for the games that have been released so far, or my answer for what I think will come in the future?
What'll come in the future, who the hell knows? But up to this point,
I'm pretty confident that there is a 95% chance that there's a Star Wars world in Kingdom Hearts 4, and I'm 60% confident that there's going to be an Avengers world.
Alright, cool. But up to this point, there hasn't been anything.
Up to this point, there has been the only live action things that we've seen up to this point are Pirates of the Caribbean, which is in Kingdom Hearts 2 and Kingdom Hearts 3, and Tron Legacy, which is in the 3DS game. Other than that, everything has been animated movies. There is a canonical reason, aside from the PS5 being powerful enough to actually run live action looking shit. There is a canonical reason why I think there's going to be more live action properties in Kingdom Hearts 4 and going forward.
Alright.
And the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4 actually shows something that looks very much like a environment from Star Wars. So that I'm pretty sure on. And I can't believe that if they're like doing that and going more live action, that they wouldn't also include probably the Avengers, but maybe just some Marvel world.
I mean, you've got access to literally the most profitable franchise in fucking history. So, yeah.
And it would work very well together because the way I always explain the MCU is that the MCU is just American anime.
Yeah.
It literally is. So it would mesh so well together. It's insane. So yeah, I want that, and I want a Star Wars world in the next game because number one, I like Star Wars, and number two, I fucking need a optional Super Balls against Darth Vader.
Hell yeah.
I need that in my... And a lightsaber Keyblade also.
I mean, Keyblades just are lightsabers.
I mean, Keyblade wielders are just Jedi at this point. Terra's very shocked. Masky McMaskface, you know him? What the fuck is going on? You listen to Aqua. You go home. It's not safe for you here. We are on a very dangerous mission and you cannot join us. And Aqua's like...
You're a little boy.
Exactly. And Aqua's like, dangerous mission? The fuck are you on about? The master didn't tell us anything about a dangerous mission. So, I don't know what you're up to, Terra. And Terra very coolly says, you know, I might be taking a different road, but I'm fighting the darkness. And Aqua's like, yeah, I don't really know about that, mate. Because I've been to the same worlds that you've been to, and you've been fucking things up pretty badly. Terra, for his part, does not appreciate being spied on, and turns around to... Oh, this is him freaking out. I don't have a screenshot of that. Okay. Terra, not a fan of being talked to this way, and he turns around to leave, figuring, you know, if I can't count on my friends to be on my side, guess I've got to be on my own.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
Well, he's not going home. I'm going on my dangerous mission that I've apparently been sent on. As Terra tries to walk away, Ventus is like, I need to go after my friend. My friend needs me. And Terra tells him to just fuck off. Just stay put. I'm going to go on my own way. I don't need you guys anymore.
Why is it that every time someone, either Sora or someone related to Sora or looking like Sora, when some friend says, I'm going, he's like, they need me. No, they don't.
Because main character syndrome. And it's like, something is going on that's not about me. I need to insert myself into this situation. Which is funny, because arguably, out of these three main characters, Terra is the maniest main character. Not Ventus, actually. But Ventus responds to that, saying to Aqua, he literally says, and I quote here, "You're awful, Aqua." So, yeah, these friends are not on the best of terms at the moment.
Not actually friends anymore.
And naturally, after all this, Aqua's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't like push Ven to go home because he's not the hugest fan of me as is right now. I'll just leave him be here. So Ven is hanging out in the courtyard or whatever this place is, where he sees a boy, which might look very familiar as well if you've been paying attention to some of the games, being attacked by some of the Unversed. And of course, Ventus beats her ass because the basic cat's Unversed. And Evan shows up, the scientist, which we know as Vexen.
Uh-huh.
Thanking him for rescuing the boy, which is named Ienzo. His organization name is Zexion. It's the magic guy with the book. It's,
yeah.
He wasn't too relevant in Gen of Memories. This one, I actually do want you to remember because he does become relevant later on. Both of these, actually. Evan and Ienzo. Zexion and Vexen, however you want to refer to them as, it doesn't matter. Evan looks at Roxas. He's like, hey, I know you from the future. He doesn't actually say that, but he does say some cryptic shit like, I feel like our paths are destined to cross again, which, unless this is talking about something that is yet to happen in modern day, this is referring to the fact that somebody who looks like Ventus, but is not Ventus, because, again, Roxas is not Ventus, and Vexen both end up in the organization working together. That's got nothing to do with Ventus other than the fact that he looks exactly like Roxas. This is a good moment actually to... Do you have any theories as to why Ventus and Roxas look the exact same, other than they didn't want to model a new character?
Not really.
Okay, let's keep going.
I mean, Shion had the thingy where she just appeared as someone you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Uh,
So presumably, actually, Shion appears as Ventus to Vexen as well,
yeah.
and to Ienzo and most of the organization. You could assume.
But that does that mean they just have two exactly the same looking people they work with?
That's a good question. They look over at Shion, they see Roxas. They look over at Roxas, and they see Roxas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's a very good point. Or they could just see Shion as like the faceless, always with the hood up version. I don't know.
They don't really have a connection with her apart from working together. So they probably see her with the hood up. And, yeah.
Yeah, and we see Zigbar when he sees Ventus through Shion. We see that before that, he does see just the hood up version of Shion. So probably in that moment, he just like makes a connection or something like that.
Yeah.
And for the most part, people just see her with her hood up. I'm going to choose to believe that. Because otherwise, and we'll get into that in a moment, actually, let's just keep on going, and I'll interrupt myself again when we get to that point. Ven goes to talk to Terra, and Terra's like, no, you still can't come, but I know that when I really need you, you'll be there for me, which is a really good way of saying you can't come, but you probably should still keep following me. And this is where we get a flashback to that same scene where Ven has his beat-up training sword, and Terra's like, I'm going to give you my training sword, which is that Keyblade.
Mm-hmm.
And here I want to take a moment to talk about how this is handed over, because this is actually a world-building moment as well. Because Terra doesn't just give it to him like, here, you can have this. He gives it in a mocking version of what is usually like a Keyblade inheritance ceremony. So he has a certain monologue, and he gives the Keyblade to Ventus, which prompts Aqua to say, and who made you a master now, Terra? Implying that this Keyblade inheritance is usually only done by actual Keyblade masters, people who have that rank, who pass the exam. Those people can pass on the ability to wield a Keyblade to somebody else.
Right.
That's not what, correcting here real quick, that's not actually what Terra is doing here, because Ventus already has a Keyblade. It's just a mock version of that to make fun of the fact that he's given away his Keyblade.
Yeah.
No, you saw a thing. Later, when Ven is hanging out in the courtyard, thinking back to this, and you can see Terra's name is on this Keyblade in very low resolution, because, again, this was a PSP game which was upscaled for the PS4. He drops the training Keyblade, and somebody that should look very familiar picks it up.
Oh, shit, yeah. God damn it, what was his name? It's Ice Cream Dude.
It's the dude it's Ice Cream Dude, indeed. It's Axel. Or as he's called here, he's called Lee, because he's still a human.
Yeah.
Which is actually a name that we already knew. Because in Kingdom Hearts Days, the target on his face dude, Saïx, calls him Lee. And that's him! Sure. That's target on his face dude.
Hey!
He got the target on his face. So we do see him. Which brings me back to my point. If all of the other organization members would see Shion as Ventus, that surely means that Axel would also have to see her as Ventus, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
So we can safely assume that everybody just sees Shion with her hood up. Lee introduces himself to Ventus and is like, "Hi, I'm Lee. Who are you?" I'm Ventus, and they have a little bit of a sparring match. Axel has like toy chakrams, and Ventus uses his wooden Keyblade, and they just fight, which is not an actual gameplay fight. Very annoying. Would have been really fun. Just they start the fight, fade to black, and Lee is on the ground. He's lost. And after that, I was like, okay, Lee, you've had your fun. We should really get going now. We're busy. And he asks Lee, why do you always pick up stray puppies anyway? Which, again, is a reference to the future, where he picks up Shion and Roxas as, like, newbies in the organization.
Yeah.
And here, Lee gives the explanation that if I make lots and lots of connections with lots and lots of friends, there's always going to be people around with memories of me, which means that I will be, in a way, immortal. The memory of me will live on forever if I just can touch enough people's hearts. Which, fair enough.
Yeah. He's the guy with the got it memorized catchphrase.
Exactly.
Right?
And he tells Roxas, like, my name's Lee, got it memorized. And I hate that part of this scene, because it was implied in Kingdom Hearts Days that got it memorized was a catchphrase that he came up with to help Roxas with his foggy memory.
Uh-huh.
This game takes place 10 years before, and he already has that catchphrase. I hate that. So we're going to pretend from now on that this scene does not exist, just because it offends me on a personal level. It's not that bad, but I think they wanted to link him back a little too strongly to Axel, because they thought people were that stupid. I wouldn't assume that somebody called Lee with the same hairdo with a friend with blue hair wouldn't be Axel, so they forced got it memorized into there, which I don't like. So Lee and Isa leave and look up at the big castle, saying, "Are you ready? I'm ready." And they head off to the castle. This is a plot thread that got set up here, and people didn't know this was going to be a plot thread, including probably the writers at this point. This is relevant again in Kingdom Hearts 3. Or beyond Kingdom Hearts 3, I should say. So, if we had done this series a year ago, this shot would not have been included. I fucking love and hate this series so badly.
They are pretty good at just throwing shit like this in there, like whenever characters you know are gonna come back have to go, or you need them out of the scene, they're just cryptic as fuck, being like, "Are you ready for it?" Or "We have to go. We have a thing to do." Just to set up a thing, and we'll see in the future. They're pretty good at that.
Well, it's actually there's one more layer to it, because they needed to set up how Axel and Saïx got into the organization to begin with, and there is an established numbering on the organization, which is the order in which all the characters joined.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that 1 through 6 are apprentices of Ansem the Wise. They work at the castle. Saïx and Axel are number 7 and 8, implying that they either joined immediately after everybody else turned into nobodies as scientists, or that they were actually part of that group. So this is just there to write in that, yeah, actually, Isa and Lee went to the castle just in time for all the experiments to start going wrong. It's just later that this existing plotline, which came full circle as just implicit confirmation of things that you just assume as it is. Later they pick that up and they just they make a little cut in that full circle, and they spin off an entire new storyline off of that. Because why were they going to the castle? We know that they need to go to the castle because in the future they become nobodies, and they become nobodies before the rest of the organization joins, so it needs to be very shortly after the first batch. Mm-hmm. But why did they go? And I think that the writers of this series didn't think about that until people started asking that question. And now that's a plotline in modern times, which it's a plotline that I can't tell you too much about, not because it would spoil things, but because I don't know about it. That is everything for Radiant Garden. So we're going to go through a bunch of Disney Worlds very quickly now, because nothing interesting happens in these. We go to Olympus Coliseum, where we meet up with pre-season Steve Rogers, also known as Hercules. And another guy on the left here named Zack, which is a Final Fantasy character. And for anybody who has played Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core, which is a prequel to Final Fantasy VII, this character, real sad. Not like he is sad, but his story is really, really sad. It's really good. And really, I threw this screenshot in there just to be able to mention Zack, because I really like Zack as a character. And we're moving on to Disney Town. That's everything that happens in Olympus.
Yay!
Nothing.
Yay, Pete's here.
Pete is here, which means that we're actually going to talk about a Disney character for once, because he's the only Disney character that we talk about. We do a little mini game fixing up a ice cream machine, which is not what it sounds like in our canon of things. And we meet Pete, who is also trying to fix up the ice cream machine, but he's dressed very funny, as you can see, calling himself Captain Justice. And every time he goes somewhere to try to help, he actually ends up breaking more stuff, and he fucks everything that he touches, gets fucked up. The reason he's dressed up funny and he's trying to help people is because as we're going through this world, there's a contest going on called the Million Dreams Award, which has one person in Disney Town get a special prize if they win the vote. So it's not like they become president, because clearly this is a monarchy. Mickey's the king.
Uh-huh.
So they can't make you president if you win the vote. Instead, you get the ice cream flavor named after you. Yeah, that's it. And Pete apparently wants that really, really badly. So everything he does, he fucks up. Have you enjoyed talking about Pete?
Uh-huh.
Good. Let's move on to Lilo and Stitch. First off, one of the best Disney movies ever. Secondly, we're not on Hawaii, as you might be able to tell. We're on a spaceship. So we're in a world that is a spaceship. Just accept that.
It's not a gummy ship.
No.
So space does exist.
Space does exist, but within the context of this world only. Because at the end of this world, Stitch does escape this spaceship and blast off to start off the plot of the Lilo and Stitch movie, landing in Hawaii and whatever. I gotta rectify something that I said before about the characters actively enforcing the plot lines of the Disney movies in this. Because this world does something entirely opposite. By the time Stitch leaves this spaceship, having interacted with Terra, Ventus, and Aqua, he already knows about friendship, and he's pretty much already gone through his entire character arc for the movie. So when he ends up in Hawaii, he's just probably, the movie doesn't happen. Because, of course, you can't have Stitch be, a good guy party member and not have him, be a good guy. And at the start of Lilo and Stitch is not a good guy.
You can't just have goals align and then someone can still be an asshole but still do the right thing.
That would be interesting. I don't think Kingdom Hearts ever actually does that now that you mention it. So that's a very good point. I don't think that would work specifically with Stitch though, because Stitch is not necessarily evil with a goal. Stitch is, at the beginning of the movie, is the definition of chaotic neutral.
He's just chaos.
He's just chaos. He's just a he's a force of nature. He's literally just a disaster on legs.
Well, he's not a force of nature because he's an experiment, but I get the point.
He's an artificial force of nature. So I don't think that would work too well with Stitch, but they make Stitch go through a character arc, and it fucks up the entire movie afterwards.
He's a force of science.
He is, and to be fair, if we could make artificial Stitches as pets, I would definitely get a Stitch.
Just get a cat. If you want neutral chaos, just get a cat.
I mean, Stitch is just a cat with all the best qualities of a dog.
Yeah.
He's the perfect pet. I maintain... okay, we're going on a tangent here. Stitch...
Again.
Stitch is Pikachu.
Yeah.
He's one of the very few characters that embodies the same thing Pikachu does, and that is being equally marketable to boys and girls. And that is fucking difficult to design. So, mad respect. And also in a good movie.
Yeah.
Which is more than I can say for Pikachu. So, Stitch and Ventus meet up right away because we were talking about a Kingdom Hearts game, apparently. Okay. And somehow, Stitch seems to know Terra and Aqua already. And he even has his little space junk wayfinder that he made himself. Oh, how cute. So yeah, that thing gets destroyed.
Obviously.
And Stitch does not like that, so he goes to beat up, what's the big guy's name? Gonzu.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you destroyed my friendship! What the fuck? And that's everything there is to it. Ventus beats up the boss fights. in this world, which is not Gantu, it's just a Unversed, and he tells Stitch that, calm down, dude. Friendship is not an object. That thing represents your friendship, sure, but friendship is the connection between you and other people. You can't just destroy that with a gun, which, hold on, yes you can. If you shoot another person, you definitely destroy friendship.
Yup.
But that's a little bit dark for Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Also, just, they're still in your heart.
True. So even within Kingdom Hearts context, if you shoot somebody, that still doesn't destroy the friendship. Which, fair enough. I don't really want to talk about Lilo and Stitch anymore. So let's talk. Oh, he's sad. Let's talk about Masky McMaskface. Because he shows up in Neverland, the Peter Pan world, where Masky McMaskface and Mickey just so happen to show up at the same time, and Mickey gets his ass kicked.
Nice.
Very, very cathartic. Meanwhile, Van is hanging out with the Lost Boys, not knowing any of this shit is going on in the same world where he is.
He would fit right in with the Lost Boys, because at this point he is quite a lost boy.
He does fit right in, actually. It's very funny because Aqua also interacts with this same group of characters, but Aqua very much is an outsider getting help from them. Ventus just immediately is part of the group.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So because they're all looking for treasure, and Ventus is like, you're looking for treasure? That sounds fun. I'm going to join you. And the treasure they find is Mickey's Star Shard, because he got his ass kicked and dropped it.
Oh, yeah.
After beating up Captain Hook, because we need to beat up Captain Hook, we get the pirate's treasure, but the chest turns out to be empty. And they come up with the idea of, we don't need all that pirate treasure, that's boring shit anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to fill this with our own treasure. Things that matter to us, emotionally. So, our favorite toys and in Ventus's case, Terra's practice Keyblade.
So, you're making a time capsule thingy?
A friendship capsule.
Right, because, your most emotionally valuable things, what you should do with them is put them in a big old chest and bury it in the ground.
Well, they're not going to bury it in the ground. It's pretty much they took the pirate's treasure without the treasure, and now they just have a storage space. It's really what it amounts to, but they spin it in a much more friendship is magic kind of way. At that moment, the Star Shard goes absolutely haywire, and we are finally done with the Disney worlds for this story.
Yay.
Which also means that we're most of the way done with the game, luckily.
Uh-huh.
Van shows up where the plot needs him, that being in front of Donald and Goofy. Yes, they're also in this game.
You are very sad.
Very sad, yeah. Because King Mickey, obviously, is going around doing stuff, and actually he's missing. Yensid can't seem to locate Mickey, and that makes Donald and Goofy worry, because they're not his subjects, they're his friends, and not definitely not tools to be used.
Definitely not Stockholm Syndrome.
When Ventus shows up with the Star Shard that they know Mickey left with, they're like, we're taking you up to Yensid and you're going to explain yourself. And Yensid smiles, which for some reason is even more creepy than him not smiling.
Still creepy as fuck.
Because Yensid's like, hey, I know you. You're Ventus. Aren't you supposed to be going the fuck home for the past 15 hours of this game? Ventus like, I mean, but... Yensid's like, don't worry about it, man. I've also got a student, Mickey. He also doesn't follow directions. I know how this shit works. It's fine. It says a lot that of the three masters in this game, Yensid is the most chill one. Yensid has plot magic, where he can show us where Mickey is. Still getting his ass kicked by Vanitas, in that same desert where Ventus fallen, which Ventus also immediately picks up on, hey, I know that place. I'm gonna go there. Donald and Goofy try to join in, he's our king and our friend, we're going to help. And Yensid's like, yeah, you don't have Keyblades, you better just stay put.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Also, if Van is needed there, just touch the
Star Shard.
Star Shard? Yeah.
Don't think about that too much.
Yeah.
When Van actually ends up in that world, checking on Mickey, who else is there but Xehanort?
Yay. This kind of looks like the world from the from that trader thingy, right?
It is, yes. The game
Yeah.
very much tries to not tell you that it is. Every time you go here before the end of the game, it calls it the Badlands, and then when you come here at the end of the game, it's properly called the Keyblade Graveyard. But yeah, that's the same world, just a slightly different place in that world. Let's go. We're about to introduce the pivotal MacGuffin plot device for the rest of Phase 1 of Kingdom Hearts, and you're not ready for it. Because Ven has a flashback from back before he was training at the Land of Departure with Terra and Aqua, where he was Master Xehanort's apprentice instead.
Uh-huh.
So we're doing things a little out of order here for me to be able to explain things properly.
Uh-huh.
We were told that Ven's heart is pure light. Avin picked up on that and was kind of weirded out by it. He doesn't have any darkness in it. And that's because in his training with Xehanort, he refused to give into his darkness. Xehanort wanted Ventus to give into the darkness, use that power, and Ven was like, I'm not going to do that.
Nah.
So naturally, what Xehanort figured he'd do is he would split the darkness out of Ventus's heart and create a new being from that darkness, leaving Ventus a heart severely damaged, which is why he needed to be healed at the beginning of the game, of pure light, and a heart of pure darkness.
That was the hole in his heart thingy.
Yeah, that's the darkness that was taken out. That darkness, I think you can pretty much like guarantee. I can guarantee you can figure out what the darkness formed into.
Am I really being really dumb for not getting it?
Think of all the characters that we've talked about, and now think which one of them screams Darkness Edgelord. It's Vanitas, Master McMasterface.
Check.
That's the living embodiment of Ventus's darkness split away from his heart.
Also, you can do that? Just
Apparently so, yeah.
okay, cool.
There's a little bit more to that, which we'll get to in another game. But for now, yeah, you can just do that. Do you feel like this is convoluted enough yet? Because I'm about like 70% the way through this bullet point.
For fuck's sake.
Because now, Xehanort finds him with, instead of an apprentice that he's teaching the powers of darkness, two parts, one of pure light and one of pure darkness. And if he can have both of those survive and grow strong enough on their own, and then make those two things collide with each other in a fight, that will forge the Keyblade. And you might be saying, but hey, don't they already have fucking Keyblades?
Yeah. Also, how the hell do you forge a Keyblade out of smashing two people together? Or two halves of one person?
Well, two holes that were halves of one person. You're fundamentally misunderstanding the question here, because they're not forging a Keyblade. They're forging the Keyblade.
I see.
And I'm not talking a Keyblade, I'm talking a Keyblade. The Greek letter key blade.
What?
The Greek letter key, which looks like an X in the English alphabet, dash blade.
Right.
I want to take a step back here. This is actually a pretty layered pun, because, of course, key is a letter in Greek, in the Greek alphabet. Mm-hmm. It means key in English. In Japanese, it means energy.
Huh.
So it's like the same thing, meaning three things in three different languages. Very fun layered pun. The Keyblade, which I'm not entirely sure I'm going to go through the rest of the series referring to. You could also call it the Kai Blade, or the Chi Blade, or the X Blade, if you wanted to. I'm probably going to bounce back and forth between all possible pronunciations of, because I can't.
Can we just call it the MacGuffin Blade?
Probably will do something like that. Anytime I make a standalone video and I mention Kingdom Hearts, I tend to refer to this thing as the Ki Kai Chi Blade. This is the original Keyblade. All the Keyblades that we know are man-made imitations of this original Keyblade. And this original Keyblade, unlike normal Keyblades, which are tied to a person's heart, this Keyblade is tied to Kingdom Hearts. So whoever wields this Keyblade has power over Kingdom Hearts, which pretty much makes them a god.
Yeah, that also means that. Does that also mean that it because you control the Keyblade, that like any other Keyblade is just fucking useless?
You would think that, wouldn't you? But I guess, spoiler, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, Xehanort does get the Keyblade, because that's just, like, even if I didn't tell you that, you probably would have figured that much out.
Yeah.
Because that's how stories work. And how stories also work is that the good guys win in the end. So Sora, main character, needs to be able to defeat Xehanort with the literal god weapon. So, yeah, you would think that having the Keyblade also makes normal Keyblades like useless and makes you invincible. It, by itself, doesn't seem to be particularly much more powerful than a normal Keyblade. It's just the fact that it can open and control Kingdom Hearts, which makes it extra powerful.
Right. So as a weapon, it's just the Keyblade. It's just that.
Maybe it's a little more powerful. Presumably it has to be more powerful, but the actual text of the series doesn't support that.
All right.
So that's what the series is going to be about for quite a while, is the Keyblade.
This very much sounds like an Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, no, this is kind of like, we've had Avengers Phase 1, which is why I say that Kingdom Hearts, the real Phase 1, in my opinion, ends with Codet, where everything like the world and the characters get set up. And then at the, well, for Marvel it was the post-credit scene of Phase 1, but for Kingdom Hearts is what I would call the start of Phase 2 is Birth by Sleep, is where we start introducing like the first Infinity Stones. In this case, the concept of the Keyblade and how to make it, and Xehanort wants it, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The Keyblade, the fact that Ventus is one of the few things in the universe potentially capable of creating it with his unique circumstance, is also the reason that Master Ericus has never let Ventus leave home. Because if Ventus somehow ran into something that's pure darkness, that could potentially accidentally create the Keyblade. And Ericus not a huge fan of that idea.
It's basically Ventus is matter. If he ever runs into antimatter, it's a big old boom, or in this case, it's a big old key.
Yeah, which is accompanied by a big old boom, as we will see in a moment.
Oh.
So, Xehanort thinking, you know what, I've taught you enough, maybe you should just go to like your own master, talk about this stuff, right? Because that's definitely not a bad idea while you're angry right now. Sends Ventus off to go back to the land of departure, finally going home, which is very funny because both Terra and Arco have been telling him to go home this entire game, and it's Xehanort who actually does it. Ericus is very happy, like, oh my god, you're home. It's good that you're back. And Ventus is like, yeah, so I can be a prisoner again, right?
Right. The world didn't end, yay.
And Ericus figures out, oh my god, you figured it out, that's not good. That means that Xehanort is like, that means Xehanort is going through with his plans. And we get a flashback to many years ago, before Ericus had scars on his face. Do you think he's going to get scars on his face during this cutscene? Because if you think so, you would be correct. He's talking to Xehanort about the ancient Keyblade War. I think we might have, about the ancient Keyblade War, and Xehanort being very curious about it, and saying, we know that the Keyblade War happened, and that it plunged the worlds into darkness, from which the new worlds, the worlds as they are now, were born. But we don't know how that happened. And we don't know what another Keyblade War would bring. Maybe that could give us answers to what happened in the first place.
So they had a bunch of worlds that all fell into darkness, and then big old singularity,
they had one world.
New worlds?
They had one world. This is like remember Kingdom Hearts 1 when I said Kairi's grandma had a story about the world being one, everybody loved the lights, but then everybody was getting selfish and wanted the light for themselves, and that caused the world to split up?
Yeah.
That's the Keyblade War.
That's the Keyblade War. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a very well-known legend among Keyblade wielders. And Kairi's grandma!
For some fucking reason.
Apparently. So Xehanort's like, okay, we know what happened to split the worlds up, and we're missing information in this story. So we should try to recreate the Keyblade War to figure out more about this. And Ericus, rightfully so, is like, you know that the last Keyblade world plunged the world into darkness, right? We're not going to do that again. Are you fucking insane?
That sounds... that kind of sounds like the few years ago, a Dutch magazine ran an article in which they asked scientists if there were any immoral experiments they wanted to do, and one of them always stuck with me. Just
Do a
an
Keyblade War.
environmental well, basically, an environmental scientist who said, "Just give everybody a Hummer. Let's see what happens."
Xehanort definitely would be one of those people. But the difference is that Xehanort didn't need to be prompted with that question. He came up with his idea and actually wants to go through with that. And Ericus, not a huge fan, so Ericus tries to attack his very best friend that he's known for pretty much all of his life. Not entirely unjustified, and Xehanort blasts the fuck out of his face with darkness.
Oh no.
Which is the last time they see each other until the Mark of Mastery exam at the start of the game. So, I want to sketch like a situation here, right? Say we're like in our 60s. We've been pretty good friends most of our life. And I come to you and say, hey, I have an idea. Genocide. You try to rightfully stop me, and I slice up your face. Another 10 years or so later, you have two students who are about to like pass their exam. Would you invite me?
No. Well, maybe just to kick your ass, but for any other reason, no.
Would you invite me if I sent you a letter saying that I was really, really, really sorry?
Maybe, but I would still kick you in the face.
So yeah, that's pretty much what happens here. Is Xehanort wants to do a genocide, Ericus tries to stop him and gets blasted in the face with darkness. About 10 years later, Xehanort sends him a letter, which we can actually read in the game, saying, hey, sorry about that, let's be friends again, I want to see your pupils become masters. And Ericus, for some reason, thinks that this is okay.
This kind of sounds like Roku Sozin situation.
At least Eric... let's keep on going before I say something that's not true.
Yeah.
Because Ericus is like, okay, that means Xehanort is going through this plan to recreate a Keyblade War. I can't let that happen. Sorry, Ventus. But the only way to make sure that the Keyblade doesn't get forged is to take away one of its ingredients. And that is you. So, bye-bye, Ventus.
Oh.
For the greater good, you could say.
That would not fly with Captain America. We're not sacrificing one for the greater good, or whatever he said.
Despite the fact that Cap does that himself in his first movie. Sure. To be fair, he's gone on like a very big arc since then, but that's an entirely different podcast. Just as Ericus gets ready to strike Ventus down, and Ventus is just kind of standing there, not entirely sure what the fuck is going on, Terra jumps in with a very dark aura around him, saying, sorry, but were you about to kill my friend? / like, kind of emotionally, my little brother? And we know that Ericus is not a huge fan of, well, apparently Terra, because he should have not failed that exam, is all I'm saying. But also the darkness, and now seeing the two of them together, Ericus is like, okay, so I was going to kill just Ventus, but if you're going to defend Ventus and using the darkness, I guess you both have to die.
Having people fail in their exams or failing at school is very dangerous. I can imagine someone failing at art school and then doing something very terrible.
Yeah, Terra's Hitler.
Anyway.
Terra throws Ventus through a portal, getting ready to fight his own master, which we don't see because we're following Ventus, not Terra. So we'll see that in his campaign. Yeah. Ven, however, ends up on the Destiny Islands, where he runs into Vanitas, who's like, hey, want to fight? Want to fight? I want to fight. Let's fight. And Ventus does not want to fight. And Vanitas says, you know, I knew you weren't going to fight. What we're going to do instead is I'm going to head over to the Keyblade Graveyard, and there I'm going to kill Ventus and Aqua. Terra and Aqua. And then you'll probably have some incentive to fight. So I'll see you there.
Yeah.
And as obvious as a trap as this is, Ventus goes to the Keyblade Graveyard. And this is where we get
he was gonna kill them anyway, so... Yeah.
This is where we get full circle back to the scene from Kingdom Hearts 2. That post-credit scene, the very nicely pre-rendered trailer for this game.
Yeah.
That's this scene. We start with just Terra.
Just a lot less nicely rendered.
Yeah, just run it on a PSP instead of on a render farm. And there's a couple of differences because, of course, now they all have voice lines and stuff like that, and there's a little bit of dialogue to slot it into the actual game. The event that we see there is this. So we start with Terra on the crossroads between all of these fallen Keyblades. Soon, he is joined by Aqua, which says to Terra that she has been informed that the Master has been struck down. And Terra admits that, yes, indeed, Master Ericus is dead, and he was stupid enough to help Xehanort in doing it. So, as I was about to say just a moment ago, with Roku and Sozin, at least Ericus doesn't die. Yes, he does.
Yeah.
It's in this scenario, Terra has the volcano, weakening Roku / Ericus. Well, I guess Sozin doesn't technically kill Roku. He just refuses to let him live.
Not saving someone, kind of when it's that easy, is kind of the same as killing someone.
So Terra helped kill Ericus, kind of by accident, through defending Ventus. So we can definitely start to see that Xehanort is very good at scheming and manipulating. He sent Ventus off to go confront Ericus, knowing that Ericus was going to kill him. Then he sent Terra there as well, knowing that he was going to walk in on Ventus being killed, so that Terra would go fight Ericus, and Xehanort could come in and finish him off. Very smart dude.
Very schemy bastard.
Next up, Ventus walks in and tells Terra and Aqua the entire story about the Keyblade, and he's not entirely sure what it means, but he's very scared of the concept. And would he be a Sora counterpart if he didn't want to die?
Nah.
He asks Terra and Aqua, I don't want to make the Keyblade. If Vanitas kills me, we're going to be making a Keyblade. So one of you guys has to do it. I want to die.
Basically, one-time vision. It's either he kills me and bad thing happens, or you kill me and not bad thing happens.
Yeah, true. Yeah. In that regard, I guess so. Yeah. After they have that conversation is where Xehanort and Vanitas shows up, and we have that entire spectacle scene, but in standard definition and very flat lighting. Terra goes up to fight Xehanort, and Ventus gets frozen in ice, which I think I might have here to fight Xehanort. Ventus gets frozen in ice. And Aqua just has to babysit Ventus because he can't defend himself. Who do you think he has to defend himself from, though? Vanitas? Not yet. Vanitas is up there fighting Terra as well, because Terra is a mean motherfucker and Xehanort needs help. Instead, Aqua is going to have to fight this guy named Break.
Have we seen this guy before?
We have. This is Zigbar.
Oh, right.
Like the eye patch and the skull.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I asked. He did look familiar.
Yeah. So we beat his ass, of course, because he's just a dude, and Aqua is a bad motherfucker. But just as Aqua celebrating that victory, Vanitas drops down and is about to kill her, which apparently infuriates Ventus enough to the point where he thaws out so he can fight Vanitas. So the trap worked. He's fighting Vanitas, and he kicks Vanitas' ass because he's strong enough to do that now, and Vanitas' body starts to disintegrate. This is where we get two reveals very back to back. I'm going to go over the least shocking one first. That is the Unversed. The enemies that we've been fighting all throughout the game all came from Vanitas.
Oh.
They are strong negative emotion giving physical form. And since Vanitas is pure darkness, he just kind of spawns that around him, and he has power to create Unversed. Now,
does that mean that Ventus has the power to make happy things?
Nope. Because that would be useful, and that wouldn't lead to you having enemies to fight all game long, so why the fuck would we write that in? To be fair, there might be another reason related to Vanitas being able to do that, which I can't explain right now.
Alright.
Because as of this point in time, you would be excused to think that isn't Vanitas just Ventus' heart?
Yeah.
He's not. He's more.
Yeah.
The next reveal is you can't have somebody's face cover for the entire game and then not show his face, right?
Uh-huh.
Wrong. They definitely do that in other games, but not in this game. As the body starts to disintegrate, so does the mask. And
Wait.
it's edgy Sora.
Couldn't quite quite see who it was, but oh,
Vanitas looks like Sora.
how the hell does that work?
Wouldn't you like to know? Because I definitely would. I'll speed through the next couple of bullet points and then I'll circle back to this to talk about it, because there's only like 2 or 3 bullet points left.
Yeah.
They fuse together, and now the Station of Awakening has both of them on it. Vanitas has a broken version of the Keyblade, so this is what the Keyblade looks like.
Oh damn.
It's just 2 Keyblades crossed together with an actual sword coming out. And Ventus is like, I'm going to kick your ass and destroy that broken Keyblade. Because, and say it with me, my friends are my power. Vanitas rightfully says, have you not been paying attention, you absolute fucking idiot? This thing is made from the fusion of your heart and my heart. If you destroy it, you destroy your own heart. Ventus,
Yeah, but he's the main character, so he wants to die.
so he does that. He kicks Vanitas' ass, he destroys the Kikai Chi-Blade, and he fades away down into the darkness, where he finds a light calling out to it, saying, hey, you need a place to stay while you heal up again? You can come stay in my heart for a little while. And that's where we end off Ventus' story. Ventus' heart has been shattered, and is now resting inside of the heart that lent him help at the start of the game. Which obviously is Sora's heart, which is why Vanitas looks like Sora.
Yeah.
That's the only explanation to why this is a thing.
But this is wait, how old is Sora in
4.
this prequel?
He's 4 years old. So Vanitas looks like Sora.
Yeah.
In Kingdom Hearts 3, they gave a literal line, which I'm like frankly offended by, where Vanitas talks to Sora when Sora sees what this face looks like. And obviously Sora is quite surprised by this as well. And he says, well, I am the piece of Ventus that was taken away, and you're the piece that was put there in my place. So why shouldn't we look alike? And that's the entire explanation.
What?
Why Vanitas looks like a teenage Sora while actual Sora is a fucking child? I don't know.
So here's the part that's taken away, but the other thingy has been.
The way I choose to interpret that is not so much that they just happen to look alike. The way I choose to interpret that is that because Sora's heart helps out Ventus and fills in a part of Ventus's heart, which Vanitas presumably still has some kind of link to, that also then influences Vanitas in a physical way to look like Sora. Because Vanitas doesn't really have a body. He was darkness taken out of a heart, given physical form. But as we've discussed before, bodies in Kingdom Hearts are like a very specific thing that you can't just conjure up out of thin air. They have to be artificially created in like a lab if you want to do that, which is what replicas are. Xehanort doesn't do that, and at this point in time isn't capable of doing that as far as we know. So Vanitas doesn't really have a body. So he's in that regard, kind of a Heartless still. Yeah. Which means that his appearance is probably somewhat malleable through his heart. And if you think that doesn't make sense, I am 100% with you. Because the only reason that this is a thing is that it's a trope in anime to have the main character but evil. And that's this.
Yeah.
So, that's Ventus' story. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to do Terra.
Yeah. I think this is long enough to cut it off here. And
yeah, we're definitely doing this in 3 different parts.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is the longest because we're going to rethread a lot of things that we've already talked about in this part and the next 2 parts.
Yeah.
And maybe we won't get as distracted doing those. So yeah, that's been it. See you next month.